Hello everyone and welcome to Cranges' Corner, where data and film intersect to form one X on my whiteboard full of X's and O's. I wish you were here to break down the film with me, but don't worry, you're in the next best place. Today, we're looking at how the Lakers attacked Houston's switches in the one regular season game the teams played once Houston had switched to small ball, and the one game that LA wasn't resting their starters. We, and the Lakers, can learn from what they tried and apply it to their playoff matchup. I'd like you to know three things about Houston's defense for today. 1, they'll switch just about every on-ball screen or handoff. 2, they like to lock and trail but also switch quite a bit on off-ball screens. And 3, when they're mismatched down low, they like to send help from the baseline. Let's first look at how the Lakers attacked Houston's switches on handoffs, which often happened for LeBron and AD. With Houston switching passively rather than showing hard on LeBron, LA was able to get some easy looks from 3. And for LeBron hopping into this gather, rather than the way he would be attacking from the pick and roll, this creates some good shots for the Lakers. Watch LeBron's footwork on this play. He hops into his catch, increasing his rhythm and getting himself squared up to increase his likelihood of hitting this shot. The Lakers attack switches to ball screens differently from handoffs. We're going to break down some of the major ways they do so. Slipping works well against switched ball screens, and doing so early in the offense before the defense is set, and also against a much smaller team, makes them even more effective. AD's technique on these is also important. Watch as he executes an inside pivot, opening himself up to the ball so that he has good visibility and can time up his jump. AD doesn't need to inside pivot here because he doesn't make much contact. And watch PJ Tucker. If this were Hassan Whiteside or another real big, this might be a contested finish, but because he's so small, AD is able to finish easily. Here's yet another play where AD is able to get behind his new defender. And watch House. If he were Whiteside or another real big, he'd be able to contest this catch, but because he's so small, and this is true with all of Houston's defenders, this is an easy flush for AD. We've seen the Lakers struggle against switches all season, but this series might be a little bit different. Just like with War, air superiority can be a game changer, and LA has that. One concept I love that we need to see more of are secondary break butt screens, where the screen is coming behind the defender as the ball is being dribbled up the court, which guarantees that screener inside position, opens up a lob, and forces the defense to collapse if they want to stop it. One concept LA didn't use as much was having their screeners seal their new man behind them and try to get inside position between them and the basket. This is really the closest we got. And honestly, I love the off-ball action more. That draws the defense's attention away and makes this a 2 versus 2 situation. Let's watch it one more time. See how that action weak side makes sure that those 3 Houston defenders away from the play don't help one bit. We need to see a lot more of that this series. Here, Kuz buries but doesn't really seal, but his quick attack makes sure that the defense can't really creep in and get extra help on him. And on this play, after a ghost screen from Kuz that doesn't work, which we'll talk about in a little bit, we see Dwight Howard roll and seal his man, not to score, but to create a driving lane for Kyle Kuzma. There are multiple ways that these seals can help the Laker offense. Next, we'll look at the Lakers trying to isolate mismatches. But this is something LA has struggled with all year, against Portland, against Houston, against everybody. When they isolate in these situations, they often face a packed paint, and they haven't responded well to that. That's resulted in really poor efficiency from both LeBron and Anthony Davis in these situations. Whether from the pick and roll or not, even with a mismatch, when you're seeing multiple bodies in the paint, it makes life more difficult, which makes clearing that paint a priority for me, for the Lakers to win this series. But one thing we know from my other video and my pre-series analysis is that when the Lakers have played big and have the opposing big be a lob threat and stand in the dunker spot or opposite block, that has created more functional space for the offense. And spacing and functional spacing are two different things. Spacing is more where your offensive players are standing. That could be good, but if the defensive players aren't also spaced out, your spacing isn't functional. This next diagram shows how Houston defended Laker post-ups in big versus small lineups, usually, but not always. Take a look at these and let me know which one has functional spacing and which one just has spacing of offensive players. I know which one I would prefer. And when the Lakers have cleared the lane, we've seen outright dominance from both LeBron and AD down low. So whether it be through using this vertical spacing or adding cutting and screening into the offense that we haven't seen nearly as much of, they need to make this happen. The Lakers can also create this functional spacing in their small lineups. They just haven't done it as much. But here we see Alex Caruso make a cut that draws the defense away from AD and over to him, and AD is able to convert that into 2 strong points. Another concept the Lakers can use are ghost screens, where the screener slips, but instead of slipping to the rim, they slip to pop. We see AD use it here, ends up driving, and isn't able to score against the packed paint, but this is a concept the Lakers can look to use and get shots for 3-point shooters, or drives like on this play. By now, we've looked at quite a few concepts the Lakers can use to attack Houston, their scheme, and their personnel. Some better with big lineups, some better with small lineups, some better for shooters, some better for scorers, but all of it can be used and the Lakers will be able to adjust depending on how Houston reacts to these different attacks. Against a packed paint for post-ups and isolations, I think going big is the way to go, but many of these attacks can work in early offense with small lineups, and I think the Lakers can have more success in the pick and roll against switches in this series than they did last series and throughout the year because of the air superiority that they possess. That's all for today, but remember to like, subscribe, turn the notifications on, follow me on Twitter at Tim_NBA, and follow B-Ball Index at the_B_Ball_Index. We'll see you next time.